Welcome back to the Cure Society podcast. Together, we're on a mission to cure society of its challenges and create a brighter future, where we spread love, inspire change, and share stories that heal the world. How do you think that we can cure society? Or somehow?
I love that question. And first of all, this setup right now, it feels like I'm getting, what's it called? Like when people are getting questioned.
Oh, interrogation?
Yeah, it feels like an interrogation.
Oh my God, no.
And I'm like, in like the
in a
best
good way. We're
yeah.
interrogating you.
Yeah, no,
Tell us all the secrets.
So I think ultimately the only way to cure society is through cultivating self-love.
Yeah.
Because hurt people.
Yeah.
So it's really about teaching people how to pour into themselves through movement, through nutrition, through healing some of their childhood wounds. And once we continue to cultivate those skills and we start to actually love ourselves unconditionally, then we're going to be able to spread and illuminate that love to everyone around us. But the problem is, so many people are walking around, so many adults are walking around, and they're really just children with grown-up costumes, right? And we have all of these unresolved traumas and emotional wounds from our past. And if you continue to harbor onto the anger, the resentment, the guilt, and the shame without actually ever healing from it, you're just going to continue to perpetuate toxic shit, right?
Yeah.
So it comes down to self-love, but then it's like, let's get deeper. What does that actually mean to cultivate self-love for yourself?
Do you think that a lot of people kind of like the idea or the concept of self-love, but then they don't create that connection in their actions? You know, like they think like, I can say affirmations, but then you neglect other areas of your life?
Yeah, for sure. I think self-love has become this very trendy thing. And it should be because it's the most important thing to actually build within yourself. But yeah, it does come down ultimately to your actions. And we live in a world where a lot of people like to talk shit. A lot of people like to say something and then do something else, right?
Yeah.
So if you're not aligned with your actions and your aspirations, there's going to be a disconnection, right? And I think that's another part of the disconnect is like, you know, even me showing up late today, right? Like I'm never ever late, but it's like, even I could come up with all the excuses, right? But even so, my actions didn't reflect my character, right? By showing up late. So it's like really just taking a step back and being like, yo, let me hold myself accountable. We live in a society that's addicted to playing the victim. Seriously, everyone, how can I be the victim? I'm Jewish right now. Well, I've always been Jewish, right now,
Yeah.
it is low key a little scary to be walking around with my Star of
Yeah.
David. Like the last couple days, I was riding my bike in Miami Beach, which is a very safe place. And I was like low key, like just checking and like looking behind my shoulder and like making sure I'm all good. I'm like, yo, like, wow. So we can play the victim and be like, oh, poor me, like feel sorry for myself. Or I can be like, how can I actually take ownership of my life and empower others to do the same? So, yeah, taking accountability, like, fuck, we lack accountability as a culture.
We do.
And it's like, how far can just the words, yo, I fucked up.
I'm sorry, you know?
It's like, yo, I could have been better.
Yeah.
I think some people also don't recognize the power in that is the act of self-love, because when you recognize that you are responsible for your life, then that means like you can create it to be whatever you want it to be. Like you have the power to either, you know, decide that victim narrative is your truth and then allow your life to unfold that way, or you can choose a new narrative. And that narrative is like limitless of what you can decide, who you are, who you're allowed to be. And so I think, yeah, accountability is super important for sure.
Yeah, I love that.
I like your I just realized like your necklace is matching.
Thank you.
Yeah, it's
Yes, nice. I got this in Hawaii. But I was like, I saw it and it was like pulling toward me, and I didn't like have the money in my bank account really for it, but I knew, I was like, that's mine.
Hey,
you know?
I love that.
And my whole life changed after I got this is when we
everything
connected.
happened.
And
So can you tell us about your journey to awakening? Like why did it happen? How did it start? Like what made you?
So I could definitely rewind and tell you a lot of pivotal points and moments in my life that played a huge role in where I am today, just for the purpose of being efficient and effective. I'm going to share with you for sure the most impactful experience I've had. And that was a little over 5 years ago, July 2018.
Okay.
And that's when I first experienced the power of ayahuasca in Peru.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. And for those who don't know, ayahuasca is a really powerful plant medicine that's indigenous to the Amazon. So it's been used for thousands of years to elevate our health, our healing, and really elevate our consciousness. And that experience was just, that experience 1000% is why I'm doing what I am today. And it's the reason that, I'm here right now speaking about the things that I talk about. And we can go deeper into like what came up during those ceremonies and stuff like that. But that was for sure the most impactful experience.
But what made you do that? Like what in your head was like, I'm going to go try ayahuasca in Peru?
Yeah. So it had been like coming up for me. And then I was like 27, 26 at the time maybe. And I was about to go to a yoga teacher training in Costa Rica. And I was literally in California at my family's home there. And I was walking outside our house and it just hit me like, dude, you need to cancel that trip to Costa Rica and you need to go to Peru and do ayahuasca. Like
randomly?
Literally such a clear download.
Oh, wow.
And I had been thinking about it and researching it and learning about it and stuff like that. But it just came together. It was like, and they say oftentimes, same thing with mushrooms too. A lot of times you feel a calling.
Do it.
And a lot of times, we try to force things in our life, whether it's with work, whether it's in a relationship. And really, I found in my experience, the most magical moments happen when you trust the flow, right?
You
And when
always
you
talk about that.
you answer those calls where it's like, yo, I'm getting this call right now to do this thing or to message this person. But oftentimes we ignore it.
Yeah.
We ignore our intuition.
Because of pride and ego, right?
Right? Yeah. And honestly, we're disconnected, right? Like you said. So going back to actually how we can cure society, your first question, I think one of the most powerful ways we can cure society in 2023 is by trusting our intuition, by reconnecting to our highest intelligence.
But what if someone's intuition is negative?
Well, I wouldn't say, I don't know if negative would be the word I would use. I think a lot of people have clouded intuitions, clouded judgment. And if you think about it, like your intuition, they say trust your gut.
Yeah.
We now know that our gut is our second brain. Okay, this is where 90% of your serotonin is produced, a majority of your hormones and neurotransmitters are being cultivated here. So the health of your gut is going to determine the health of your intuition. So if you're eating shitty food, if you're drinking a bunch of alcohol, if you're fucking ripping the vape, if you just have a bunch of shitty, harmful habits, all of this is going to be fucked up. And we have over 70% of Americans walking around right now overweight or obese. So if they try to trust their gut, they can't even hear it because there's all of this shit in the way. And that shit is oftentimes fat, it's inflammation. So we need to return back to our health so we can actually start to listen to our divine intelligence, which is our intuition. Does that make sense?
Yeah, I think that that's so true that, a lot of the times in our society, something that's sad to see is that we approach these problems backwards, right? Where we look at like the problems, but we don't look at the root that like maybe it's the food. And then doctors are so quick to just prescribe something or maybe it's, these habits that And intuition is a muscle that you can practice and you can get better at through different kind of practices, like what you're eating and breath work or meditation or whatever route that is for you. But I think that what we like to talk about a lot on Cure Society and culture stigma itself is that a big issue in our society is this closed-minded nature where people, are kind of stubborn in their ways. They don't want to change. They don't want to change their habits. They don't want to hear another perspective that they disagree with. So we want to dive in a little bit to the topic of toxic masculinity.
Oh, wow.
Can you tell us, what is toxic masculinity to you?
Well, that's a great question. And I would love to get your guys' opinion after. So we're living in very interesting times, in case you haven't noticed.
We've noticed.
There are a lot of feminine guys and there's a lot of masculine women. And what happens in that process is there's a lot of tension and a lot of confusion, right? Because naturally there's supposed to be this beautiful polarity between the masculine and the feminine. And that's what creates connection. That's what creates chemistry. That's what creates intimacy.
Yeah.
Right? Is like, in my beliefs, I believe the masculine should really be a safe space for the feminine to express herself and really surrender and receive. And also, I believe it's the role of the masculine to provide support, both emotionally, mentally, spiritually, and financially. Like, be a provider, be a protector. That is what I think we've lost in our society, is like really embodying that energy. And almost like, I think men have been told to be less masculine, which I think is a horrible message to send.
How so, though?
Like if, for instance, I'll just speak on my experience. I'm a super passionate, energetic, focused guy. Like, I love crushing workouts. Like, I love just being like, let's fucking go, right? Like, that is primal.
Yeah. Like,
men, we have a primal nature, right? And like, to try to strip that away and say it's unhealthy or toxic is ridiculous, right? So in addition to that, I think the whole Me Too movement, if you guys remember that, like 5 years ago, where it was like, all of these women were coming out and making these claims about men sexually assaulting them or abusing them. And don't get me wrong, many times like it was true, but as most things in society, it got taken too far.
Media, yeah.
And then you have women who maybe had their feelings hurt or emotions hurt, and they're able to like ruin a man's reputation based on some sort of assumption, and then he's proven not guilty and whatever. That's like a little sidetrack. But to really revert back to what your question was, like, what do I believe is toxic masculinity? I believe toxic masculinity is when you are addicted to instant gratification, when you are addicted to quick hits of dopamine and you don't have the ability to delay gratification. So that's why we're seeing so many men who are addicted to porn. They're addicted to vaping. They're constantly numbing themselves with alcohol, right?
Steroids too, maybe?
Maybe, perhaps. And for me, that's truly toxic masculinity. That's just toxic behavior in general.
Yeah, exactly.
Like, that's like toxic humanity is being a slave to these hits of dopamine that are outside of yourself.
Yeah.
And that's really coming back to self-love. When you cultivate love for yourself and you feel intrinsically whole and complete, you don't feel the need to constantly chase things outside of yourself. And I think root cause, like, I mean, I'm at the, like I was telling you, at the standard spot, like literally every day I see this where, there's a dude at the pool and he has a laptop on his ball sack. So he's like putting his dick in a microwave, essentially. All right. So that's one thing. Then he has AirPods in. So he's blasting himself with EMFs, which is terrible for your brain. Right. And then he's ripping the vape in one hand and has like a cocktail in the other hand.
That's so bad.
You know what I'm saying? So for me, toxic masculinity is a man who doesn't take ownership of every single area of his life.
Yeah.
As a man, you should be responsible for your health, your healing, your happiness, your financial abundance, and the impact that you create in the world.
Yeah.
And as soon as you don't take control of those things and you hand them off to the government, you hand them off to big pharma, you become dependent and a slave to other vices, that is when you become a weak man.
Wow. He
Yeah.
spoke facts right
That's
there.
interesting. I think too, like there is this pattern, and it could be generationally, and what continues this pattern is maybe like women whose fathers kind of had some of those toxic behaviors that were just familiar to them, right? Like, so I always say to my friends, like, just because someone feels like home, like you kind of have to ask yourself, what did home feel like to you? Because just because somebody might, you might experience this familiarity being with them, often I feel like the universe grants us experiences where we have the choice to break the cycle, the generational cycle, or to stay complacent.
Yeah.
And I think that, I've definitely had experiences, I know she's had experiences where you felt like, you could focus on all of the positive parts of someone, but if they did have those toxic patterns, you had to kind of pick up that slack, and that's exhausting. And so I really think that there is, like, everybody, if you want to create that dream relationship, then you need to be that partner to yourself, meaning like
facts.
you have to walk away from the situations that are where you're settling, even when it's hard. And like, that is like on you to do that. No one's going to do it for you.
Yeah. I mean, daddy issues are a real thing.
They are. They definitely.
Oh, yeah.
She know. I'm kidding. We know. We know. Yeah, and I think it's also really important to be able to date yourself, like become your own boyfriend or girlfriend and be able to go out with yourself and not feel the need to have someone. I think it's also what society lacks is we always are like lonely, but it's something that we need to heal from for sure.
Yeah,
I
you
think
need to
there's
sit with yourself.
Oh,
Yeah.
yeah. I'm sorry.
No, you need to get comfortable, like you said, like dating yourself and really,
Dating.
yeah, and spending that time and building that connection and
Yeah.
intimacy with yourself. Like for me personally, this was actually the first year that I experienced heartbreak, and I was like, and that opened up this whole portal of possibility in terms of emotions, right? Like I experienced so much sadness. And sitting with that sadness was so challenging, but it was also one of the most rewarding journeys I've been on, because on the other side of that was just so much joy and gratitude and being able to tap into all of these ranges of emotions.
Yeah.
And I know for me, like as a man, it was hard for me to really sit with those extremely painful emotions. But because I was willing to do that, it opened up more possibility to experience gratitude, joy, pleasure in a more abundant way, in a very special way. So that's also part of it too, is like being willing to really feel your emotions. And again, we live in a world that is constantly programming us to numb your emotions.
Yes.
You're feeling sad, take an antidepressant. Oh, you can't focus, take some Adderall. Oh,
Yeah.
you're feeling anxious, drink just a couple cocktails. That's all.
Yeah.
And all of those things and all of those messages that we're receiving are to run away from yourself
Yes.
rather than actually be with yourself. Because if you can't be with yourself, then you're never going to love yourself. And if you can't love yourself, then how do you expect to actually be able to give or receive love to anyone else?
Exactly.
And I think there's a correlation between kind of how you were saying in the terms of toxic masculinity, for example, depending on these hits of dopamine where you become dependent, and then that's the mirror you experience. So you're going to have an anxious attachment style. Which is going to push away a partner. You know what I mean? And so I feel like I think the connection a lot of people are missing when it comes to those like quick fixes and dopamine hits is like they're not considering that there's real repercussions. They're just focusing on the reward. And I think it's important that people start to ask themselves, like, are the habits that you have actually nurturing you, or are they, slowly creating destruction in your life?
And also speaking on like the loneliness thing, I feel like a lot of men deal with loneliness, right? Because they're wanting a woman, or which is why they're going to the AI porn and whatnot, right? So, how can you like tell men to get over that loneliness, or to be able to love themselves enough to not feel the need to go to like AI porn or whatever, Like what
you really want to drop in about the AI porn.
I do.
If we're being real with ourselves, we all have little habits and addictions and patterns that don't necessarily serve us.
Okay.
Right? And they can be small things. Like you were just asking me, right, about loneliness. And, I like in the past, like if I was feeling lonely, I'd be like, yo, like who can I hit up to come over tonight? Or like,
100%.
you know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
When in reality, like sometimes that's okay, but other times it's like, yo, like that, I probably shouldn't be hitting this person up.
Yeah.
You feel me?
Yeah.
And it's like, it's not the best thing for me. It's not the best thing for them.
Because it might not go anywhere, or you're not trying to be with that person or whatever. And it's just kind of like a pointless
exactly. Like again,
waste of time.
Exactly. Like it doesn't serve a purpose in the long term. It's just like to
dopamine hit.
to temporarily feel
Fulfill,
better.
Fill
Right?
a void.
So what are some potential harmful habits or addictions that
I feel like
you
I used to
guys-
have that habit for sure, like of feeling lonely and needing to either have to text someone, like a guy or something like that. But I don't have that anymore, luckily. But I feel like now maybe it's more so working, where sometimes maybe I'm like on my phone a lot, like trying to just get things done, working, and I'm not in the present moment so much. And I would like to be more in the present moment when I'm talking to someone and I'm not, you know what I mean? Like if somebody's speaking to me and I'm like, hold on, like, you know what I mean? I feel like I tend to do that sometimes.
I think for me, I actually had this realization recently with like an experience with quitting a job, where I kind of called my mom and I just started crying, and I was like, I feel like people walk all over me. And I just started crying to my mom, and I started, because like when I like go to a job or in a friendship, like when I'm, I like to give my all and give all of myself. But then I had this realization that like that thought that like people walk all over me, that's like a self-fulfilling prophecy. And like if I like had that belief like deep down that like, that's just what happens to me. But that is a victim mentality, thinking that, and I have the choice to walk away, which I did. And so now I'm feeling really firm in I'm working on that now, of just like when something doesn't serve me, I don't have to be there. And so that's something, but that has been a pattern, a toxic pattern for sure.
How about you?
Well, that I was saying that like I was doing
That.
sometimes like I would just hit up people, or maybe even
What about now? Oh,
would
your tattoo
say-
literally says now. I said now, and then I looked at it.
I
It
would
was weird.
say honestly, the thing that I'm really continuing to learn is clear communication. Being so beyond clear with communicating my intentions with everything that I do, whether that's like coming on this podcast, let's set intentions, or whether it's like I'm talking to someone and like, okay, what are you hoping to gain from this experience?
Yeah.
Like, just let's just make sure we're both aligned and on the same page.
Yeah.
Because again, whether I want to or not, like there's always likely going to be emotions involved, right? Whenever we're dealing with things. So for me, it's really about removing emotion from certain decisions and certain communication. Like you've probably at some point texted someone something that you regret.
Yeah, of course.
Right?
We've all
Where
done
it's-
it.
Where it's like,
I
Plenty of
really
times.
should unsend that, but now there's the unsend button.
yeah, when did that happen, by the way? Like a
I
week
think that
ago?
just happened, but you actually can't unsend after like 5 minutes.
I noticed that too.
So
I
you
was
have
like,
to like really quickly do it or edit it.
So we're all guilty of sending a text message to someone
Hitting
and
someone
then
up.
regretting it. Like, fuck. Like, so I'm doing my best to really have that mindset at all times. Like, is this going to be something that I'm proud of, like 24 hours from now, a week from now? So really just being intentional with being very tapped into my emotions, but not letting my emotions like rule me. Right. So that's something that I'm working on every day. I think, Liv, you asked something before though.
Yes. Well, yeah, I was asking about how men deal with loneliness and how to, like, what would you say to those type of men or those men dealing with loneliness and feeling the need to fill that void with women or fake women, AI women, you know?
Yo. Well, first of all, I think there's a huge difference between being alone and loneliness. I think it's absolutely essential that we all spend time alone with ourselves, right? Connecting to our breath, connecting to our truth, connecting to what actually matters in our life, right? And it's important to also not isolate yourself and find your tribe and be around community. Like, this is absolutely essential if you want to live a long, happy, fulfilling life. So I think, first of all, most men don't even have one person in their life that they can open up to, like really open up to with the most vulnerable shit in their life. And that's facts. Like, that is tragic. And that is why the rate of suicide with men is so much higher than women, because women tend to be so much better at just like communicating and expressing their emotions authentically. Men, we're taught to suppress and put shit down. And when you continue that cycle of doing that, you feel lonely, because it's like, fuck, I'm feeling all this stuff, but like, I can't share anyone. They're gonna judge me. Like, so it's really important to sit with yourself and build a connection to your emotions and feelings and learning how to express them openly, which is a journey. That's a process. Like, I'm on that journey, right? And but finding a tribe, like finding just one or two people to start that you can really just be yourself around unapologetically. Like, aren't those the best friends?
Yeah.
Like, where you can just fully fucking be yourself.
Be
If you
yourself.
wanted to get on this table right now and fucking twerk, and they're like, yes, fucking get it.
No, yeah, for sure. Not have to hide anything at all. Yeah, I think I feel like even women though, because actually the statistic is that more women try to commit suicide but fail, and more men actually succeed at committing suicide. Because I guess the way they're doing the suicide, there's, drugs and then gun, so it's like easier with the gun. But so yeah, I think that women are definitely more able to open up and be vulnerable, but at the same time, I feel like we do have a lot of pressure, especially now, to not do that, because we are judged a lot by society to be a certain way. So it's also scary for us to open up with people and be vulnerable, because we feel like...
And what's the way that society's expecting you to show up?
I think it's kind of the, like, it's never enough kind of idea. Like the, either your body should look more voluptuous,
like
or actually you should be skinnier, or you should,
or don't act.
You should speak but not too much. You should express
Like the
yourself
Barbie-
but not in a way that's weird. It's like and I think men deal with that as well. But what I was gonna ask you kind of in relation to that is talking about a tribe, you being someone who has a large platform on social media, talking about these taboo concepts that not everybody is super comfortable with. How have you navigated through receiving backlash or judgment? That's something we like to talk about on here a lot as well.
Yeah. Wow. That's a great question. For me, man, I have really learned how to receive hate. And, when I was younger and playing sports and stuff like this, I would oftentimes hear like, yo, like, the best in the world always have haters. And I was like, that's weird. But if you're the best, like, why would people hate you? You know what I'm saying?
Yeah.
And when I think back, like, to who my favorite athletes were, whether it was like Michael Jordan, Kobe Bryant, and like some of these type of people, there's people that fucking hated them. And it's like, bro, he's so good and like he's a good guy. Like, what's the matter? And I realize now more than ever that hurt people, right? Yeah. So when someone comments something malicious on something that I post on social media, or they send me a DM, like I just received a couple of days ago, calling me a dirty Jew or a Nazi, right? For me, I take a step back, I take a breath, and I think about where that person is in their own life and how much pain they're in and how much they probably hate themselves. Because for someone to take time, their most precious resource, to consume my videos, to consume my content, and then spew venom and spew hate, they must be in a very dark place. So that's how, for me, I respond to like hate or malicious comments. Now, there's ranges of it. Like there's certain things that I think are just way too out of line and unacceptable. But that's like online shit. Like I know none of these people would say shit to my face.
Never.
Right?
Like how many times have you gotten real hate in real life? Like never.
Yeah, like people are like, and that's what's scary though, is like all these fucking people are keyboard warriors. They think they're all tough and strong because they can type shit behind a screen without ever even owning up, like not even having a picture on their,
lack of accountability,
on their profile.
And they're so triggered by you. Like your authentic expression is so triggering to them because there's that piece of them that's dying to not give a fuck and dying to be expressed.
But they're hiding.
Wow, that's literally exactly what I was going to say next is like when I see someone and I get triggered, and it doesn't happen so much anymore, but looking back at it, it's always because they're doing something that I want to be doing. I know as the powerful man that I am, I'm confident with who I am. I'm confident with what I bring to the world. I know that's going to trigger people who have not yet tapped into their potential and they're still operating in mediocrity. And when you see someone doing bigger things, not saying that I'm like doing amazing things, I'm just getting started myself. But whenever you see someone who potentially is carving out this path that you actually also desire, right? Naturally, those insecurities, the jealousy, the resentment, but it's not really, it's about transmuting that resentment to like admiration. Like, yo, that person's doing some dope shit. Like I still sometimes get frustrated when I see some of the people who are like, there's like 22-year-olds who are like crushing it in business. Like they're making like 500-600K a month. And I'm like, fuck this little shit. And I'm like, but let me take a step back. This kid's, he's learned a skill. He's better at one part of business than I am. Like I have something to learn from this guy. So it's actually like being humble and having that mindset of like, yo, what can this person actually teach me? And I see it all the time with women too. Women talk so much shit about each other. It's crazy. And like if someone sees another woman with like, you know, who's like taking care of her body and maybe she's like with a nice partner and just seems happy. Instead of like being happy and cheering that person on, like, yeah, get it, girl. Like you fucking crushing it. It's like, nah, like fuck that bitch. It's like, yo, why? Like, why?
It's because hate is a form of love. It's a hidden love. You know, I think that people who like really hate someone, it's because deep down there's so much love for them that they hate them. You know?
Yeah, they say that hate is not the opposite of love.
The same.
They say that indifference is the opposite of love because love is such a powerful emotion and frequency. And hate is also very powerful, right? So like how can you transmute those emotions? But when you're indifferent and you just don't give a fuck, it's like it's hard to turn that into love. It's like, yo, I just don't really care. You know?
I think not caring is actually like could be more hate, right? Like, oh, I don't even care, than like actually hating because you're putting in energy into something. So clearly you don't hate it necessarily.
One of my mentors and clients, he said something that really stuck with me when he was talking about his first failed marriage. And I asked him just like, so how did you know like that it was time to call it quits? Like, how did you know it was the time? He's like, honestly, man, when I stopped caring, like when I didn't want to fight for it anymore. When I didn't want to fight for the relationship, that's when I knew I was completely checked out and I needed to move on. So for anyone who's listening, it's like, if there's something that you really want, you'll fight for it. You'll do everything in your power to make it work, whether that's a relationship, whether that is a certain aspiration that you have, a certain goal, a certain dream. Like, you will fucking give every ounce of energy and potential you have. But the moment that you stop caring is the moment that you stop loving and the moment that you stop living. You know, when that passion is no longer there, it's like, fuck.
I like to play with musical artists, and like sometimes I feel like with artists, they kind of reveal like the secrets of the universe. If you read between the lines a little bit, how, you know, they're at a place maybe of success a lot of people want to be at, with like appearances and money and success. And obviously some artists are not relaying a positive message, but even like I would tune in and listen to people like female rappers like Rico Nasty or Beyonce. And Rico Nasty like says some things like, I'm original, that's why these bitches can't stand me. Or Flo Milli says things like, these hoes really be jealous, that's the reason I'm not friendly. And like they're kind of spewing these secrets of like, this is my, you know, I am, like, these are my affirmations, and this is where I've gotten by believing these truths about myself. And so I feel like when we were talking about hate, kind of cultivating that inner fire of like, I'm going to shine even brighter for you. Like,
make people hate you more.
Yeah. You know what I mean? Like letting it fuel you.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting that you mention these female rappers, because you guys might know Cardi B.
Yes.
And she has this very famous song called WAP, which, for those who don't know, stands for wet ass pussy. And we were talking about the problem with women in 2023. And to be honest, I think WAP is part of the problem. So I'm all in support of women like embracing their sexuality and like their body and owning that and being proud of that. I think it's beautiful.
Yeah. And
I'm also in support of like a woman being a woman, like a classy woman that like I would want to bring home to my parents.
Yeah. And
like this whole wet ass pussy movement where it's like, I'm a bad bitch, I don't need a man. Like, I'm a fuck 4 dudes in one day. Yeah. What's up? Yeah, I go hard. It's like, okay, let's take a step back. All right. Is that really your truth? Is that really how you want to show up? And what type of man do you think you're going to attract by embodying that type of energy? Because I can tell you, a high value man does not want a woman who's fucking a bunch of dudes, who's like showing off her wet ass pussy to the world. And that's just my perspective and point of view. And if you're watching this Cardi B, it's all love. It's all love, no hate. But I'm just saying, like, the impact that type of shit makes on young girls is profound.
No, yeah, I can definitely agree. There is extremes in the female artists, like lyrics, and it definitely, like, there's little girls listening to that, you know, and I can understand. I think that women definitely should not be just giving up their body to just anyone, because it is an exchange of energy. Like, having sex with someone is an exchange of energy, and I think that we definitely should not be doing that. So I think them promoting that is negative.
I think it's part of the industry too, like you spoke about how it sells, right?
Yeah.
Like sex sells.
Yeah, sex sells. So I don't know if they're exactly trying to promote that, but it's promoting by just doing it. But
this goes back to something we were speaking about earlier, right? I think now more than ever, there's so many women who are stuck in their masculine energy. And what do I mean by that? So many women right now are trying to be like men, right? And this started with the feminist movement, and it had good intentions. But just because a woman can do basically everything a man can.
Yeah.
Get a great job, like crush it in business, be an entrepreneur, like do all those badass things, doesn't mean that she should do everything that a man can, right? In my opinion, like so many women right now are in their masculine energy, meaning that they are operating in this mindset of like, I want to just get shit done rather than let me actually connect to my heart. Let me connect to my divine essence. Like, I believe that women are here as one of their primary purposes to be a nurturing force for humanity, for being this beautiful divine intelligence, this portal of birth, literally, like this portal of birth, this softness, like this beautiful reminder of grace, of presence, of surrender. And I think so many women that I meet who are like successful have achieved a lot of success in the material world, in the business world, but they're also feeling very disconnected from their feminine energy because they're constantly grinding. They're not taking that time to really like give themselves that moment to connect to their breath, to their intention. That's a lot of the women I work with, honestly.
Do you think that goes for just women though? Because don't you think that men and women need to both connect with themselves in that way and not just grind? Because, you know, I think that for me, I don't think it's really a gender thing. I think that even if a guy is just in his like grind, not connecting,
Of course.
it's also
For sure. So when I was younger, like let's say even a few years ago, I would like, if I would meet a woman, let's say at like a networking event or an event or whatever it was, if I would meet a woman and I saw she was super attractive, but there was something that just sexually, like intimately, like didn't feel any sort of connection. And I didn't really know what it was at the time, right? Because it's like, you're successful, you're physically attractive, but like, I don't feel any polarity or chemistry physically or sexually with you. And the reason for that is because there was a lack of that divine feminine essence. Does that make sense?
Yeah. Okay.
You know what I'm saying? So absolutely, I think everyone should take that time to be with themselves and like be mindful of how much you're just on this hamster wheel of chasing the next thing.
Yeah.
Right? But I think something so important for women is to actually allow yourself to receive. Like allow yourself to receive support. Allow yourself to receive help. Like you don't have to do everything by yourself. Just because you're a bad bitch doesn't mean that you can't also allow yourself to like receive, right?
Yeah.
And that's not a sign of weakness. Like, because when that time comes for you to be a wife and a mom, do you expect to continue just like this? Or are you going to be able to really like show up in that divine way for your family?
But I think also like a lot of women are masculine because the way they grew up where they had to take care of themselves, right? Maybe their father wasn't that father figure showing them, hey, like this is how a man should treat you. This is what you need to do, right? So they grow up maybe with just a mom or having to take care of themselves or whatever the case is. And then they grow up being like, well, I got here doing it on my own. So like, I don't necessarily feel the need to need someone else, you know, because they grew up that way. And I think it really goes down to how you're raised.
And let's be very clear. Like you mentioned, Jules, daddy issues are a real thing. So that's going to obviously create part of your reality as an adult too, right? If you didn't get that love or validation or support or nurturing from your father when you were a little girl, you're probably going to constantly be seeking that as you get older. Right. And that's why a lot of women, you'll realize, like, date people who resemble their father.
Scary.
Right. It's the same thing for dudes, by the way, a lot of times.
Yeah,
like,
they want their mom. Yeah.
It's kind of crazy.
Moms. They're like, oh, my mom does that. I like her.
By the way, this isn't what we were talking about, but I heard someone say something that was like, that like kind of blew my mind. It was why men hurt so much more after breakups
Think so?
is because we provide hopefully a good man will provide like a lot of love, a lot of support, a lot of protection for his partner. In a similar way that you would provide protection for your daughter, right? So when you lose that person, it's like you're losing a child in a weird way. And if you think about it, humans aren't supposed to lose their kids. But like women, on the other hand, usually date someone, again, it's more of like that fatherly relationship where it's like a little more dependence, a little more security, safety, support. And we lose parents all the time, unfortunately, right? Because they're 30, 40 years older.
Yeah.
So it's like, I know in my recent situation, like when my heart was broken,
You thought it was like a daughter, like leaving you?
that was crazy. That's like pain I've never experienced. And I don't think women understand how sensitive and gentle a man's heart is. And I think oftentimes society paints it like
They're strong. And
well, not even that. It's like when you think of cheating and being unfaithful, usually people assume that it's the man. But in reality, it's probably 50-50. Like I know the men in my life who have been in long committed relationships with their partner, like the level of love they have for that person and how much that person means to them.
yeah.
And anyways, I got my attention diverted, but yeah.
I think it's interesting you say that too, because I think another reason for wanting to even start a podcast like this is because we kind of felt emotionally exhausted from all of the conversation going on today about relationships and dating and high value women, high value men. And a lot of the times it's hard to watch and it's sad to watch because it kind of makes you feel like there's no hope.
Yeah.
For
like,
relationships.
all men are going to cheat. You're going to have, once you're 30, you can't find love ever again. You're done.
Or
that's what they say.
Or the definition of even like high value, right? What does that even mean? Because to some people that means
money, just money.
Right. Someone who's rich
or
but who has
famous
no morals.
or whatever.
Yeah.
So I think it's cool that we can, open up a container for a conversation without so much anger and judgment, because that's like the first step to understanding each other better, is to listen and not, judge or attack or decide someone is wrong, but just to be open to hearing what medicine they might have to share.